got a crazy-ass true story to tell. It could be funny or thrilling or creepy as hell. And when you speak, surely none will make a sound. And the world's going breathless when your true story comes around.
All right, welcome back to Your Best True Story, episode 17. FCAT, we're up to episode 17. That's a milestone.
That is. Fantastic number.
Yep, and like normal, first episode of the month, we are announcing the winner from the vote of last month of June. Let's see, the June winner is Rob Kidston. The underwater photographer has just become our first two-time vote winner.
Man, that guy's got a following.
Yep, yeah. And I was actually thinking about it. I'm glad Rob's won, and we're definitely going to invite him on the show for an interview if he'll do it, and be reaching out to him to give him the prize money. This did make me think that we needed a rule about how often you can win, just to avoid somebody like with a big social media following winning every month, to give everybody a shot.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm thinking we're going to call it the Kidston Doctrine. The last time he won was 4 months ago. So maybe we'll just randomly make that the rule and see how it works, of that you can't win. There's got to be 3 months at least in between your wins. You can submit as many calls as you want, as often as you want, but you can't win unless there's a 3-month gap.
He's doing great. He's cemented himself in infamy.
Yeah, he's making it a part-time job.
And he's got his own doctrine.
Yeah, and he's got his own doctrine now. So we'll be reaching out to Rob, and congrats to him. And hopefully he will come on the show in the next couple of weeks. And then I do like to always ask people, if you get a chance, don't forget to leave a 5-star ranking on whatever podcast app that you listen to, because that does really help the exposure of the show. So we really appreciate that. And then before we get into the calls, I was just going to touch on, have you been paying attention to Ray Kurzweil's prediction? He is kind of a futurist, and he is known primarily for frequently predicting technological advancements correctly. And he just a couple of days ago he actually supposedly predicted the iPhone years ahead of time and several different things. And he recently predicted that by let me check here what year it is. I think it is, after 2029, which is only 5 years away, he's basically predicting us a version of immortality, and that we can bring people back from the dead.
Like a version of the people.
Well, yep. That's the catch, is when I heard his explanation, because the news was saying, and here on the Daily Mail, tech prophet who predicted the iPhone years in advance makes alarming forecasts for the coming years, and dead people will come back to life. But the catch is, it's going to be basically, and apparently Ray Kurzweil is actively trying to do this to fill in an AI model with his own dead father's information, including like letters, videos, and things of him. And so he thinks in 5 years, he's going to basically have an indistinguishable version to him of his father. Right. First communicating through the internet, but then he believes that the living, basically indistinguishably living robot version will be here within a short few years.
Yeah, I just saw this week, that, how the AI can animate pictures, right? You can take a picture and you can animate it into like a little couple seconds what was happening during the taking of that picture.
Sure.
Well, now they're going to be adding sound to it soon. That's coming in probably a week. the way this is going. But yeah, no, I could see dead people versions of everything coming back.
The interesting thing, though, is it's always that catch, though, that I don't think, as somebody who believes in a soul, like basically what you're doing, even if like that isn't bringing his dad back, that's just bringing back a thing that you can't distinguish from being your dad. So it's tricky. The way the article presented it first was like bringing the dead back to life. Well, but it's not really those.
Right.
Essences.
It's a
It's
version,
just,
and every version of everything is already subjective. Like the me that you experience is different than the me that I experience.
Yeah.
So I could just be an AI version of me that you experience right now while you've got your helmet on in your little goo pod.
Yep.
You know, so
and that is what's happening.
Yeah, right.
Occasionally, I pull the helmet off.
Exactly.
I'm in a goo pod, and then I put it back on.
So
I can verify that.
So of course we're going to be having historical figures, and people come, their versions of or their avatars come back and start telling us stuff. It's going to be awesome.
Yep, that could be very cool. And also, I noticed almost the same day, I think, and almost the same year, 2029 or 2030, there was another article of, have you ever heard of the prophetess Baba Vanga?
No. I would remember that name.
Yeah, she, I believe she is Russian, and she was a blind woman, looks perfect for a woman that can predict the future. Like, she has no eyeballs, scrunched up face, looks like a hermit woman. And her predictions, she predicted 9/11,
okay,
supposedly, and some other pretty impressive things. She was called the Nostradamus of like Belarus or something, maybe. Anyway, she supposedly predicted the end of the world in 2030, and I think her and Ray Kurzweil are both correct. What they're both describing is the same. Just the
so
technology.
many different versions of that, though. Like, the Mayans did it for 2012. And is it the end of the world, or is it the end of the world as you knew it, and it's now unfolding in a different direction? Like, because somebody, if they're still here in 2030 and a half, is like, oh, that was crazy, but it wasn't the end.
Yeah.
Right? Unless it's like there's got to be zero and nothing going on for it to be the end.
Yeah.
So,
and I think even Baba Vanga said it only starts to be the end in 2030. She was explaining that
so she's got to leave it out.
Yeah, and apparently that's when the end of the world starts, but then I think something I was reading, like it might even be stretched out for hundreds of years for her.
Yeah.
Which, that doesn't sound like the end at all.
No, and one thing when you were talking about bringing back the characters from history, it just flashed back to, you remember in MTV they had celebrity death matches? We're probably going to ruin it and have like Washington fighting Genghis Khan in some sort of pit match.
Wow, that would be amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
But we would do that.
Oh, yeah. No, that's exactly.
Because why not? You've gotten, you've woken up dead Washington, his avatar, and somebody, because everybody's going to have their own version of dead Washington avatar, and, somebody else will be like, well, I'm going to stage a deathmatch fight.
Yeah.
And sell pay-per-view tickets to it.
It's going to be so entertaining. Different options.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'd better get into the calls so we don't have the show go too long. So now for something completely different, Freddie, than AI dystopia. I'm not going to give too much of a tell or background on the first call, but there's kind of a general theme to this show. The episode, a lot of them are kind of like, is it something paranormal or not? Okay. Seems to be the theme. And so this first call is coming from a woman named Bree in Boston, and the call is called the Overnight Shift.
Hey everyone, my name's Bree, and I'm going to tell you one of the creepiest, but it's also kind of funny stories that I've got. It happened when I was working at a bar a few years back outside of downtown Boston. All around Boston and Massachusetts, and even up and down the northeast coast of the United States, are where our most old buildings, historic buildings are. And so there's lots of ghost stories that are associated with them. And this bar that I started to bartend at had it was pretty historic. The building, I think, was at least 300 years old originally, although the bottom portion of it had been renovated, obviously, into like a newer interior and structure, so that it wasn't like, it was a nice place. It wasn't like a high-end bar. It was kind of more of a dive bar, but I guess what I'm saying is it definitely looked and felt like a modern bar tavern. And on top of it, though, was the second floor that all I knew about it was it supposedly was part of like the second floor of the original house that everything was in. And so as far as I knew, it was completely vacant. All the windows were always dark, shut up there. So it was just like this mysterious kind of spooky second floor with windows and everything that no one ever went in and out of. I didn't even know how anyone would get access to it. But anyway, so it was just kind of up there on the second floor above the bar that I worked in. And because obviously I asked questions about it, the other coworkers kind of teased me and said there were ghosts that live up there, and just to make sure that I never ended up having to close the bar at night, because the ghost would come down from the second floor and be what they called the overnight shift. So they always said that if you ended up closing the bar, we would basically stop serving at 2 a.m. And everybody always recommended, if I ever had a closing shift, to get out of the building before 3 a.m. because that's when the overnight ghost shift started. And so I don't believe in ghosts, but it was funny. It was kind of creepy. There was this whole second floor up there that no one ever went into, but I didn't think much about it until the first night that I closed. And once we shut the bar down at 2 a.m., there's a bunch of work you got to do to, prep everything, get it ready for tomorrow. And so it takes you a while to do all that, and it was taking me, because I'd never closed before, a little bit longer than people that were used to it probably. So I was just at my final stage of making sure all of the doors to the bar were locked and everything was secure before leaving, when 3 o'clock came around. And I checked, and I knew it was getting close to 3 o'clock. I looked at my phone, and about 10 minutes earlier, I was like, I got to get out of here. Even though I didn't believe in ghosts, I still, just being, a single female, I didn't really be there and push the envelope and have any weird encounters or anything happen. So I'm checking all the doors and go in the very back to check the back exit to make sure it's locked, when apparently it had turned 3 a.m. and I swear I hear something up towards the front of the bar, where we've got the bar, but then also access to the kitchen where we made sandwiches and things like that. And so my heart skips a beat. I'm like, oh my God, the rumors are true. There's actually ghosts, because I can hear something rustling around, even what sounds like some breathing up there in the front of the bar. So cautiously, I make my way up, and I peek around the corner where I can see towards the bar and the door going into the kitchen, and I almost jump out of my skin, because what I see is a couple, a man and a woman who must have been in their 70s, from just white hair, wrinkled skin. Maybe the worst part of all is they were in their underwear. The guy was just wearing boxers that were like raggedy with his stomach hanging over him, and all this white hair growing on his back. The woman didn't look any better. She was in bra and her panties that like skin falling all over it, and just gray hair, nothing that you want to see. But they definitely weren't ghosts, but they were making ham sandwiches and pouring themselves drinks, and I freak out and run out of the front of the bar, not knowing what else to do. And I call one of my coworkers, my manager, to report that there's people that have broken into the bar. And he starts laughing his ass off and explains that that is the overnight shift, as they call it. They aren't ghosts, obviously, but they were the kind of destitute uncle and aunt of the owner of the bar that he basically let squat up in that second floor. And they would sleep all day and only come down at night, which they had permission. There was a staircase through one of the locked closets that I never even realized that went up to the second floor. Once they were sure everyone was gone, which was typically 3 a.m., they would come down and eat and drink and hang out in the bar. And so anyway, it scared the daylights out of me. And so it's creepy, but it's also kind of funny and kind of sad, I guess. But it's one of the best stories that I've got. Hope you enjoy it and can play it on the show. And excited to hear other people's stories. Thanks a lot.
That would actually be pretty freaky. We've both worked in bars and restaurants and stuff, and if you're closing up and don't expect to see a couple of, well, anybody, but especially a couple people in their underwear, that would be kind of disturbing the first time it happened.
That for sure would be, depending on which bar it was that I would work at, because some of them drinking was a requirement. So at the end of the night, it might not have made even a ripple to me based on how the condition that I would be in at the end of some of the nights. But yeah, some of the other ones be like, what is going on with it? And why don't they just put on clothes? I don't understand why they're in their underwear.
Yeah, maybe they just didn't expect anyone to still be there. Maybe the rule was that everyone did get out of there by 3, and since she was new, they didn't realize that somebody would be down there.
Yeah, but just to have the ghost part of it attached to it, her brain's is gonna like formulate that first.
Yeah.
As the first, she's like, I'm literally seeing the ghosts of dead people making a ham sandwich.
But this does bring up an interesting question in regards to ghosts. Why do ghosts have clothes?
Yeah, well, that is a good question. And why would they present as a certain age or as a certain look? Like all of you can drill down on any of the attributes of what you're seeing as the ghost, and then ask why. Yeah, why that haircut?
Yeah,
yeah.
It's weird when you think about it, because like you would think that they would. It seems like they would be naked if they were. I mean, ghosts. Yeah, just in general. Like. But then if they do get stuck, does the ghost just always think, like, if that, granted these weren't ghosts, but like the ghost was just stuck in his boxers for all eternity? I mean, maybe that would be part of what he was tormented about. Because he'd just be always looking for his pants.
It has to do with the rule of ghosts, I guess, is like, when is it that you're frozen into, and I'm going to do air quotes, time,
Yeah.
Like, what are the rules about how you get frozen, and which version of you is seen or perceived by other people? And does it have to do more with them or with you? Or are you in charge of it? Is there an overarching rule of ghosting or being stuck between dimensions? Are the ghosts even there, or is it just the people seeing past frequency experiences that took place that relates more to them than where they are?
Yeah.
Like there's so many caveats to
That'd just be
ghosting.
suck to be a ghost and stuck with no pants
Right?
for all eternity. And
Right.
all you're trying to do is find your pants.
Well, I mean, what about like, really, really old ghosts, like before pants?
Yeah. That is an excellent point. Why don't we see cavemen ghosts?
Yes.
I think
Cro-Magnon ghosts with clubs.
just
and
walking around
pelts.
Yeah.
Right? You would think they would get frozen in a pelt.
And I think we touched on this before. There should be a lot more dinosaur ghosts and
Yeah, well, well, if there's the dinosaurs,
yeah. Yeah.
what about giant ghosts?
Yeah.
What about pet ghosts?
Yeah, that we definitely did discuss. That there's not
Nearly
as
enough
many,
of those.
Yeah,
around.
that you would think. And that almost, if you think it's like some emotional thing, that you would think there would definitely be more because of the strong emotional attachment between
like those
humans.
You almost
Yeah.
formulate yourself. Like for sure, like the week after a treasured pet leaves, you could still hear the pet.
Yeah.
Like I've experienced that myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would attribute that to my brain, putting the sounds in my ears. But
Yeah.
if it's gone, if it's formulated based on raw emotion, the pet I'd have this house full of pets.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. You'd have a whole Noah's Ark running around of ghosts. Well, not to get too far down the ghost thing because these weren't ghosts,
right?
So these were just destitute
people
elderly people living upstairs. And so hearing this call made me start to, and the next call we've got coming up is kind of related a little bit.
Okay.
To the same thing that if you have not heard of the term phrogging, it is Phrogging, but it refers to people living in other people's houses without those people that own the house realizing the person is living there. And apparently I'd heard a couple stories like this before, but it's far more prevalent than you would think. And first of all, that's just a bizarre, creepy as fuck concept that you could be living in your house with somebody living with you and just never realize it. But then it's apparently since the internet has become such a thing of people trying to do it, that I found a website that is, the name of the article is Your Guide to Secretly Living in a Stranger's Home.
Okay.
And I won't go through the entire article.
Well, there's a fetish for everything.
Yep, but if you want to be a successful frog, as they call it, some of the tips that it gives you in the guide is, first of all, remember your moral code. You are not a thief or a home invader. You are merely taking advantage of unused space in someone else's house in order to have a cheap vacation. That's morally questionable, but once you start taking valuables that aren't yours, you've gone from trespassing and breaking and entering to more serious crimes. So I think that's a reasonable stance if you're going to...
I'm glad to see they have codes.
Yep. Some of the other tips are location. Make sure that you're picking a good spot. Choose the right house for... best phrogging experience. You want to choose a house where all the inhabitants work during the day, but which is large enough to have an attic, basement, or a garage that isn't in constant use. Aim for the garage or guest house. Avoid security cameras. That seems like a no-brainer. I'd hope to think all potential frogs out there are aware of that. Dogs are not your best friend. Check for guns. A good frog is a neat frog. Don't eat too much and don't stick around too long. So those are the guiding tenets if you decide to become a frog, Freddie, or for any potential would-be froggers out there. I think those are all good
This has
rules.
got to be along the same lines of people who don't need to like steal, but do, like, as far as like it's a like an energy boost to them or something.
I got from the little bit that I looked into it, I got sort of the same vibe as like there's groups of people that just for the fun of it kind of train hop and travel around and that kind of thing, or have like pop-up raid. It seemed like it was kind of maybe that same vibe, community of people just kind of.
Well, I just randomly scrolling on TikTok this week, I've seen it was not exactly the same thing, but people that would get into like a large festival just by wearing like a reflective jacket and a hard hat, and just pretend to be, doing their business, whatever their job is. And it was amazing the places that they would get into just with the attitude of like, I belong here, and not avoiding contact, sort of just,
blend, just looking
blending,
like
just
with
blending
authority
into the background. And it's amazing how many people will just, be like, oh, that guy has a ladder. So he's obviously not sneaking in here.
Clipboard. You can get away with amazing things if you hold a clipboard.
Right, yeah.
Just walk past all kinds of people.
Your rights to a clipboard.
Well, let's get into the second call that is definitely related to this. And this is Anthony from, I think, Atlanta. And you can see where this is going, but the call is called The Phantom Roommate.
All right.
My name's Anthony, and I think I've got a pretty good story for your podcast. It's about when me and my girlfriend almost broke up a couple of years back. We lived together in this apartment complex. We're actually still in the apartment complex. And we started to have a weird series of events that started to make us argue and not trust each other more and more. And so this all occurred over a couple months, a couple of years back, that we started, first off, I'll say we've got had at that time very kind of hectic, haphazard schedules. I would play at bars and gigs in a band a couple of nights a week. Other than that, I drove Uber in the day a lot of times, and my girlfriend, she was a hairstylist, but she would often do like appointments where she would go to the client's location. So later, once all the facts had come out and we were kind of comparing notes of what each other was thinking during these couple of months where so many weird things were happening, we both actually admitted that we started to think that the other person was cheating on us. And so that started to be the justification in my mind. Like when I would find the sheets messed up, I would be like, is she, has she got a guy over here when she knows I'm driving Uber? And like a couple times when food went missing, or I remember one time there was a jar of peanut butter that was left with a knife in it, which typically we never leave food out. And the peanut butter jar, like somebody had obviously been eating peanut butter directly with the knife and had left it in there, and that was something completely uncharacteristic to me or my girlfriend. So there again, I started to think, is it some dude she's got over here that is eating the peanut butter when I'm out here? And so anyway, she was thinking the same thing about me with the websites and weird things going on with her clothes and different stuff and the food. But anyway, the long story short is that there was a 50-year-old maintenance guy named Frank that everybody loved that took care of the building. And he, as it turned out later on, once everything came out, because of somebody having a tiny little camera in their apartment to watch their new dog that they got, and apparently that caught Frank on camera. What Frank was doing was he had a pretty elaborate scheme of knowing when most people, what their schedule was going to be when they would be in and out of the apartment. And the apartment building with 42 units was big enough that it you never, like, you didn't necessarily always see Frank walking around. Like, yet there were different entrances he could come and go from, and he knew when people would be in their apartment or not, and then he would let himself in and basically live in the apartment, sometimes overnight, if he knew that people were going to be gone. And he even, I think he had recording devices and some, so he could tell if people were going to be gone for like the weekend or something. He would go and live in there, and as I mentioned, like, he'd eat their food, he would watch porn, just sleep in their bed. Pretty damn weird and disgusting. And with us, I guess he was really good at getting everything back to normal. Except with us, we had such a haphazard schedule that he couldn't really pin it down, and sometimes he would get caught with one of us returning home and him having to sneak out of the apartment once he saw our vehicle drive up in the parking lot, and so that's why he would end up leaving like a jar of peanut butter open. But apparently he had been doing this for over a year, and it was crazy. But anyway, once that came out, me and my girlfriend did not break up and had a pretty good laugh over thinking each other was cheating when it was actually just a really strange 50-year-old dude living in our apartment and eating our stuff. Thanks a lot. Love the show. Keep it up.
I gotta admit, the more I looked into this, there were a couple of closets in my place I hadn't checked in a while. And once you started to think about it, I had to go check. I sort of looked around to make sure that there was no potential spot for a person to be hiding.
When you say closets, Jim, it reminds me of my college days. And I don't know if I would technically be a frogger, but my last year of college, I actually lived in a closet. Like, all right. I had friends who had an off-campus house, and they had all the bedrooms filled and stuff like that. But they're like, I'm like, man, I need to stay with you guys. This is a good situation over here. I'm like, well, there's this closet, and literally it was about the size of a mattress. That's it. And I'm like, all right, okay. So they charged me $60 a month. I threw down a mattress and I put up some Christmas lights so I could make the place nice. And I literally lived in a closet for the last year of college. It worked out great.
For an entire year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I had access to the rest of the whole apartment, which was like a 4-bedroom,
Yeah. I think if they know you're there, that doesn't count as frogging.
But here's the funnier part. There's a second crawl space that went into an attic, which was an even bigger kind of L-shaped attic space, but the inlet to it, you had to go in a bathroom right next to the toilet. There was like a sliding door that was maybe about 3 feet high, and you could go in, and then once you went in there, it opened up, and I'm like, oh wow, I'll take this spot. And then they were thinking about it, like wait a second, when you come in and out, this is kind of awkward. So we settled on the closet place. But I could have almost lived in the walls, like in the bathroom with my own little sliding door.
Yeah.
And you would have heard parties. Like, you could have just gone to the restroom and there would have been like some
oh my God, that would be creepy as hell to like in that like if they didn't know you were there and they did that would be frogging. Like, and can you imagine
it was an actual like I almost talked him into it because the other space was bigger. And I'm like, I can fit a couch on this side and I could put a mattress on the other side. I can have guests over. I can
can you imagine if somebody was living in there that they didn't know, that you guys didn't know about?
Yeah.
And then like you just going in the bathroom and open the door and there's some dude sitting on the door. And then you freak out, shut the door, and then when you finally get up your courage to confront him, open it and he's gone.
It's gone. Yeah.
You're just like, what the fuck is going on?
It was I thought it was a great setup, and I actually enjoyed the randomness of sliding a hole in the wall, like, and coming out of there. But I had plans. I could have done big things. But there's this reminds me of another story that I saw a couple months ago. There's a woman. She was found living in a Michigan store sign.
Nice.
Like on top of the building, like literally.
That is
it in the like triangle part of the Family Fare supermarkets sign up on the roof. She would get up on the roof. She had a whole apartment set up inside the sign.
That is brilliant.
And she was there for a good amount of time. I'd have to go back and see how long she was there. But then they actually send a police up there to kick her out, basically, and she had a job and everything. Like, she would go to work. But I mean, when you talk about Phrogging, like, she picked a space that's nobody's using it.
That's actually brilliant. From, if I'm trying to get in the head of a frogger, of like somebody that was if you're trying to minimize getting caught.
Yeah.
Then, like, big signs and stuff, like, because those have a lot more space.
Imagine, like, living on top of a Walmart. Like, if a Walmart had, like, a little triangle part, which was just basically the sign that said Walmart, and it had a space inside it, and you just went up there and made it comfortable and put a little, like, beanbag chair and some lamps and some place for your clothes.
The thing that would get you, that would be hard about it, is just that you would have to there'd only be certain times you could come and go or make noise. So I bet that's what gets a lot of the froggers.
Originally, because remember, the Walmarts used to be open 24 hours a day. So people coming and going 24 hours a day wasn't, so I don't know this specific, grocery store. Maybe she timed her time to go up there, based on when she gets out of work.
And if she had been super smart, she would have combined what you were talking about earlier, and she would have had something from a distance that looked like a Walmart.
Right. She should have gotten a worker vest or something, so when she's climbing the fire escape to go up there, nobody would. But she made it a long time. Like, she lived there. And she had a whole apartment set up there.
Wow.
Like, to the fact that it took numerous trips to get all her stuff down. Like, it wasn't like, oh, this was weekend, she made it the weekend. She was there for a while.
Yeah.
And people were on the social media were like, just let her live there. Just make her an icon, like the lady who lives in your sign. Like, why not?
There's some story that I'd heard like this. I think it was maybe the Mr. Ballin YouTube channel, where he maybe told the story, and I think this happened like in the...
You mean Mr. Beast?
No, Mr. Ballin.
Oh, so it's a different guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
He tells like story, like former Navy SEAL dude that tells all these crazy true life stories. He's awesome.
I know Mr. Beast does this stuff like... Well, he'd be like, will you stay in
No. These are supposedly
room for a month?
Mr. Ballin just tells the story, but they're supposedly all true stories and everything. And I can't remember the details of it, but I think there was a guy that got and this might have happened in the 1800s or early 1900s, like in a big mansion house, like... that a woman divorced her husband, I think, and the dude, she thought he left.
He just didn't leave.
And he crawled in the walls and lived there for like something like a decade in the wall, and she never realized that he was there.
Yeah, well, from what I've seen on this subject, people do like it. Part of it is like needing a place to stay. Then you have the other people, who are like, "Oh no, I'm totally a creep." And you're literally like, there'll be like an eyeball looking through a socket, to spy on you. And they'll have like a whole setup behind the walls and, scratch out a little part of the mirror. Like,
well, I've got a story, Freddie, that I found exactly up this alley of some of the most horrific phrogging cases in history. And I won't read all of them, but just to give you an idea of how bad they can get. This one's called The Stomach Churning Case of Daniel LaPlante. Tina Bowen was convinced that the spirit of her deceased mother was speaking to her through the walls of her home in Massachusetts. For weeks, the teenager received cryptic messages scribbled onto the walls in condiments like ketchup. Items mysteriously rearranged themselves around the house, and full bottles of alcohol suddenly became empty. Then, on December 8th, 1986, Bowen and her father returned home to find a bone-chilling sight, a stranger in one of their closets with a painted face, a Native American jacket on, a ninja mask, and a hatchet in one hand. And he forced the Bowens into a bedroom before running off into another part of the home. Tina used the opportunity to escape and called the police. Authorities arrived and found that the stranger was a teenager named Daniel LaPlante, whom Tina had briefly dated, and he had been living in the family's crawl space for several weeks without them knowing that he was there. And he was leaving the messages taunting her. And unfortunately, the article goes on to say this creepy story does not end here. LaPlante would later go on to brutally murder a young teacher and her 2 children while he was out on bail for the Bowen family incident. So obviously completely nuts.
Yep.
And there's other ones. There was there were too many to... Don't want to tell them all because they were pretty disturbing, but the idea of having a creep in your floorboards or attic or living in the walls is apparently far more probable than most people think.
Right. Yeah, like a 1 in 10 probably.
Yeah. Oh, it's a way higher odds than getting killed by a moose.
Yeah.
And we know that's astronomical. We know people are dying from moose wrecks constantly.
Well, it's got a name. I mean, this stuff has got a name, so
yeah.
There's a definite segment of the population that's all into this.
Oh, the internet is an amazing thing. what it's doing to the people. And so now moving on, kind of sticking with the same theme, though, of is it paranormal or just something weird? We're getting away from Phrogging, and we've actually got our first Area 51 call.
Oh, cool.
So going down a bit of a different track, but let's see if I can pull it up here. It is going to be RJ calling from New Mexico about her Area 51 experience.
My name is RJ. I'm from New Mexico. I have a story about Area 51, but it's probably only partially like the kind of story that you're used to. A while back, I was part of a group who would go out to the edge of Area 51 and watch for activity. And we spotted a lot of interesting things over the months that I was hanging out with these guys. We'd go out for a weekend and into the desert and try to figure out if anything was going on out there. We never really expected to see much. It was sort of a half joke. But we did see a lot of normal-looking military operations, vehicles moving around, even though they got it pretty well blocked off, and it's a good distance away, even as close as you can get, unless you break through the fence, which none of us ever tried to do, but we heard stories about guys who did that, got caught, and spent some time in jail. One night, we were hanging out and having some beers, and it was cold, but we didn't want to have a campfire. The military personnel tolerated our presence. They would come by and check on us at least once every visit. We usually only camped out one night. Sometimes we did 2 nights. But they would swing by and make sure we weren't up to anything like trying to cut the wires. And they got to know us and we got to know them. And it was a cordial thing, cordial understanding between our groups. And so we go out there one Friday night and nothing happens. We have a good time. And a couple of us decide to stay over until Saturday, me and this guy named Paul. And so we're hanging out by the fence after all the other guys are gone. It's Saturday night, deep into Saturday night. And we had a little too much caffeine, or we just got to talking, and we ended up staying up till about 2:30, 3 a.m. in the morning before we knew it. And getting ready to turn in, I had a little pup tent. He had a little hard camper that he pulled behind, and so he climbed into his camper, and I was relieving myself in the bushes when I looked up and I see lights in the sky. And to my absolute disbelief, they looked exactly like some of the descriptions that other people had seen that I had never seen before, even as many times as I've been out there. And it was a trio of lights, maybe a half a mile or a mile up in the sky, in a triangular formation, holding steady, like little lamps in the sky. Well, stronger than lamps, spotlights, I guess, but they weren't casting lights out. They were just like little glowing stars. And that's when the lights came on inside the facility, a lot of lights over this big sandy area, and some vehicles start to arrive, and they align themselves underneath these lights. And they're small vehicles, but I can tell that they're not humans because of the way they're moving. It looks like they have wheels on, and they're leaving tracks in the sand. And this is still a good distance away. I mean, it still looks like ants to us, but we can definitely tell something's going on. So we have our faces pressed up against the fence, and we're watching this little parade it's a single file line of these little, what do they call those things that you stand on, and segways. They look a little bit like that, but they're sturdier. I guess a militarized version of that. You can't tell that there's a driver, but it's about the size that a person would need to operate this thing, and it has a couple of wheels on the side. And they're more vertical. They're taller than they are wide. And none of them have lights on them. They seem to be armored in a way, just sort of military style, I guess. And they're kind of painted beige. They blend into the sand really well. So mostly what we could see are the tracks and occasionally some shadows from the lights, the big football floodlights that they got blasting this area of ground. And so while these three lights are up in the sky, we're watching this little parade of vehicles, and they get out to the middle of this sandy spot, this flat spot, and they align themselves in a triangle, and then they stop moving. So there might be about 30 of them. And so 10, maybe 10 to each side. I'm just estimating here. And I look up at the three lights that are in the sky, stationary still, and they seem to align with the points of the triangle on the ground that these vehicles have formed. So it looks like if you were to draw straight lines between the lights in the sky and the points of the triangle on the ground, you'd get a straight line that forms a solid three-dimensional shape. And so after staring at it for a little bit and taking pictures and quickly hiding our phones, we notice that the lights start to spin very slowly. They seem to be rotating around an invisible central point, just real slowly. But at the same time, the vehicles on the ground match that movement exactly. But they don't leave tracks in the sand. They're doing something. They're too far away to see, but it looks like they're hovering off the ground. And all three sides of the triangle are moving in unison, exactly in time with the spinning lights in the sky. And this goes on for about 40 minutes. And we're snapping pictures, we're taking pictures. And so we're just dumbstruck, and we're thanking our lucky stars for being the ones that stayed behind to get all this action. And so we're standing there, we're watching this stuff for 40, 45 minutes or so, watching the show, and that's when the MPs come out and take our phones, make sure everything's deleted, make sure nothing's in the cloud. And that process took about 3 hours. They put us in this little room, and we saw this stuff, and obviously we had a lot of time later to try and figure it out. And the closest we could come, or closest I could come, my opinion, is that it's some kind of precise, they were testing some kind of precision GPS system, maybe, because to be able to match the movement of those lights in the sky, whatever they were, exactly with the movements of the vehicles on the ground, whatever those were, it was unparalleled precision. It was like some kind of ballet to watch these things spin and move across the sand in unison as well as they did. I mean, if a the three lights in the sky were casting a shadow, the vehicles on the ground in the triangle formation would have just perfectly stayed on the edges of that shadow and tracked it around that sandy area. And so even though, you don't really get arrested when the MPs come out, they detain you, they make sure you're not, and they shake their fingers at you and they really pressure you about going back out there, but it's still legal to go right up to the fence line. So I went out there a few more times before I moved away and never saw anything like that again. I don't know what the lights in the sky were. I don't know what the vehicles on the ground were that looked like they were hovering, but I thought it was a crazy experience. And it's not like the little green men, that you're used to hearing about, or gray men or whatever. I didn't see any craft associated with the lights in the sky. They seemed separate themselves, moving in perfect unison. So there's some crazy stuff out there. I've seen some of it. And so if anybody's thinking about taking a trip out that way and watching for some lights, you just might get lucky like we did.
So I've never gotten super fired up about the UFO stuff. I don't know why that just doesn't capture me. Almost all the rest of the stuff I think is really fascinating, but the true UFO stuff, and I think because part of it, so I'm not an expert on it, especially Area 51 or anything, but part of it to me is I just think that didn't what she's describing. It's just, that's just our technology that isn't known to the public.
Yeah.
So it's not
it's not from an extraterrestrial.
Yeah, I don't think it's super hard for me to think for some reason that there's aliens actually here interacting. But I do think with the military industrial complex, DARPA, there is a ton of shit we don't know about.
Yeah.
They are created.
Even anti-gravitics at this point doesn't seem like a stretch, because you can do it yourself with some magnets. You can have things float.
Oh, yeah. There's a Japanese train.
Well, there's trains that do, but I mean, it's a force that you can observe yourself.
Yeah.
That something, you have lamps that you can buy that literally float in the middle of the air and power themselves wirelessly.
Yeah.
So it's not at any point a stretch to think that, they can fly some devices weirdly. And yeah, of course they've kept, where do you think all that black money goes to? The dark money.
Gazillions.
Trillions of dollars that are missing from the federal budget that go to, it goes to all the toys that we don't get to see.
And that's it. Sometimes, you notice also, there'll be indications of technological advancements. Mm-hmm. And I noticed this would happen, where it'd be there'd be some crazy story. This must have been 10, 15 years ago, that they showed evidence of the use of invisibility cloaks.
Yeah.
Where basically through light refraction, even back then, it was possible for somebody to put on a tarp that would basically make them indistinguishable from the environment for to anybody looking. And then it just all disappears, and somehow people lose interest in. To me, I'm okay, so they're using that then.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a bit. That's why you no longer hear about it that much.
Right. And the amount of stuff that we get to hear about now through the internet, which also, if you look, DARPA has its fingers all up in that, and search engines. And so they're allowing us to see this stuff, which means that they're, 500 years ahead of whatever we're, the latest insane video that we're getting to see.
Well, that's what I was thinking along the same lines when I first heard the call. And so do you know what Perplexity AI is? It's one that's designed, AI chat bot that's designed more for research.
No, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah. So I was using that a little bit for a couple of different things, and you can ask a more complex question, and it will basically kind of show you the work that it does, lay out in
how
steps.
It comes to its conclusion.
and reference the articles and things. And so I basically asked it to look through all the internet and give me its best guess of technologies that DARPA probably has
Yeah.
that we don't know about.
Okay.
That are realistic based
Right.
on academic publications and in articles, everything. And so its answer was, based on the information provided and considering DARPA's history of developing cutting-edge technologies, here's a list of 10 surprising DARPA-related technological advancements that are likely to exist in 2024, even if not publicly acknowledged. Let's see, advanced brain-computer interfaces, so sort of like what Elon Musk is working on. They've probably already got.
The Neuralink?
Yep. Yeah.
But not really where you actually have to implant something.
Yep.
Where it could just read your brain waves.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, and they call it, apparently there's already a program called DARPA's Subnets program where they've been working on this. So that's what one Perplexity thinks is already here. Number 2 is autonomous cyber defense systems, evolving from the Cyber Grand Challenge. Fully automated AI-driven cybersecurity systems are probably operational, capable of detecting and neutralizing threats in real time without human intervention. So that's basically moving us closer to Terminator, Skynet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just making autonomous decisions on what's
Sure.
a threat and eliminating it. One of my personal favorites is insect-based micro drones, which I remember them talking about for espionage years ago.
Well, yeah,
And-
if it flies, it spies, right?
Yep, and that's another thing that then somehow it sort of fades away, and over, which to me means they're using them.
Sure.
Like where you think you're in a high-level meeting and you think it's not being recorded, and a little fly
At
is
some
buzzing
point,
around.
you're not even going to need those, though.
Yeah,
Because,
sure.
okay, so if you look at your brain, like, if you have these brain caps that can map your little firings in your neurons and stuff, and you can reverse engineer that into a picture, which they've shown they can do. So as long as you can tune into your brain, you could basically see out of your eyeballs.
Read people's minds and
No,
see out of it. Yeah.
out of their
Sure.
eyeballs
Yeah.
what they're seeing
Yeah.
based on the electrical impulses that are in their brain. So, and I know you haven't watched her video yet because we would have been talking about it, but that Sabrina Wallace lady is talking about all this stuff that is so
that one.
crazy,
Okay. Yep.
but so detailed. She talks about the biosphere, how they tap into your biosphere, get this data information. They can see out of your eyes. They can know what your thoughts
Yeah,
are.
I'm one step away from being able to conceptualize biospheres.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to go to biospheres
I know
yet.
you're not, Jim. That's why you haven't. That's why you haven't looked. But eventually, we'll get there, and this stuff will be like, oh, the AI is only telling me half of the story.
Yeah.
Because her stories are 100 times crazier than what your AI is talking about.
Yeah.
But she's saying that this stuff has been going on for years, like decades already.
Wow.
So it's
well, yeah. Right
and
now,
less intrusive. You don't need flying bugs
Yeah.
to listen
I'm kind of
in.
excited about flying bugs right now, though. That
Flying bugs was probably so 1970s.
1970s cutting edge technology. Yeah, you're probably right.
We're like, oh, the flying bugs. We're like, yeah. There's somebody or some AI in some computer somewhere laughing right now, going, look at these two idiots. Flying bugs.
I am still really excited about the robot dogs that are eventually going to hunt us. Because those things, if you don't keep up with Boston Dynamics or whatever,
I've seen
they are making those things are getting so fast, agile.
Well,
They put guns on them.
fishnet is the
Fishnet.
answer to those. A fishnet. A
What do you mean?
casting net.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know. On
They're
the
never-
dog.
Yeah, you just you throw one of those giant nets
Oh, to
that
be
are
able.
really
Yeah.
hard. You're not going to be able to get out of it. Like now, if there's
they'd have to
multiple
put a saw on the front.
yeah, but
like
if you have if it's stretched out, then yeah, you can saw through it. But the whole idea of a casting net is that it just gets
tangles
tangled
more.
in on itself,
Yeah.
and just
Yep.
will immobilize you.
Yeah.
So if you have one dog
Yeah.
chasing you, a fishing casting net would be a good way to get rid of it, or at least slow it down enough. Maybe it'll heat itself up and it can melt the casting net.
Did you ever see the Black Mirror episode that was about the person being hunted by the robot dog?
I saw snippets of it. I didn't watch the whole entire thing. I saw him running up trees and the dog had a gun on it, and
it was just so creepy because the thing was just when you
relentless.
Think it just never stopped.
Yeah.
So like no matter how far you get away, then eventually you'd hear in the distance.
Well, even the dogs are cool, but they can only run on the land. Like if you look into what DARPA does with drones.
Yeah, well, that's like a whole swarm of insect drones that can kill you.
Right. Well, you have that version of it where there's just you're going to be inundated with numbers of them. That's one version of it. What about if they can get together to do things, to move things, or to become what they need to become?
Well, some of the other, that sounds like what the AI is saying with the autonomous cyber defense system is basically it can make its own decision, act like a swarm.
Right.
And then later on in the same list, it's listing, where was it? Programmable matter. Talking about like nanotechnology.
Nanobots,
and drawing from various material science projects, DARPA could have developed materials that can change shape, properties, or function on command.
Yeah, black goo.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already have that.
Yeah.
That was 2021.
I'm very confident on the invisibility cloak.
Yeah, that's
thing. So in the perplexity doesn't even mention that, but that's got to be here. That was here 15 years ago.
An invisible jacket.
Yeah.
Right now, Jim. You just didn't notice it.
I'm not sure if it works. It's not the jacket that's invisible. It's the jacket makes you invisible.
Well, I got the version where you just can't see the jacket.
You got it on inside out?
No, it's just an invisible jacket, Jim. Like I'm water repellent, but you can't tell I'm wearing it.
That would be pretty badass, actually. Another thing that I swear around that same time, too, there was information on the internet about, but then has completely faded, and this is in the list. It says, where is it? That regenerative biotechnology, building on past medical research, DARPA may have developed technologies for rapid healing or even limb regeneration. Mm-hmm. And I remember around that same time as the invisibility cloak thing, there was also on the internet, and you can probably still find it if you Google pixie dust.
Yep.
That supposedly
smart dust.
Yeah, that you could
look up.
Yeah, you could and they chopped off somebody's thumb and basically regrew the thumb with it. Which that doesn't seem that far fetched when you think about like lizards can regrow. Like there's obviously a way to do it in nature. Mm-hmm. And so how freaking hard is it to turn that thing off or turn it on or off or whatever you need to do to make your limb regrow?
Yep.
They've obviously got that.
It's obvious.
Yeah. Along with a cure for baldness, which they don't want to give people for some reason. Probably because they're making too much money from selling treatments for baldness.
People are flying for all these flights to Turkey to get hair implants. You got the whole Turkish hair implant economy to
Is Turkey
think of.
a big place to go?
Apparently.
Huh.
Yeah. Apparently that's where the hot toupees come from. Well, the ones that are implanted in your head.
Oh,
yeah.
they
Yeah, apparently it's financially a little bit better, and a lot of guys go to Turkey to get hair.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And luckily, we've both got our hair still, more or less.
Yeah.
So
I've just decided to keep my hair and not lose it.
Yeah, I kind of made that decision also.
Yeah,
you just got to decide, not
just
do
decide.
It. Yeah. So
it's really, because we create our own reality, and so it's all good.
But it is just kind of like, why, because DARPA can regrow hair for all those dudes that are wrecked over going bald. Why are they such dicks? It seems like they would just give out the balding pill.
No, because it's a slave system, and they gotta figure out ways to get you to use your free will to enslave yourself. And if they gave you all this hair, you'd be running around all happy.
Cocky.
Not doing what they want you to do. Yeah. So no hair for you.
Maybe that's in the grand master scheme of like the of the world conglomerate trying to control things. Number one is just never let them have the cure for baldness.
Yeah, I mean, you keep them depressed. Like you tell them on TV how much they need
erectile
hair.
dysfunction, baldness. Yeah, just keep them derailed.
Yeah, just keep them wanting more. Keep them unhappy. That way, they're gonna gravitate towards whatever it is you're selling that will equal happiness. It's its own trade.
Yeah,
it's its own economy.
Think you might be onto something, Freddie.
Yeah.
Well, now for our last call, for something completely different, but a subject that I think you're going to be excited that we're getting back to, Freddie.
Okay.
Because I know how much into Dogman you are.
Oh.
And we actually... since we had that amazing Dogman call last episode, we actually had our first rebuttal to a call called in.
Okay.
And so it is to that, our first Dogman call. We've got Shirley from Arkansas calling in her issue with that call.
Let's see if she fills in some of the gaping holes.
Yep, I think she will. Shirley from Arkansas, take it away.
Yeah, I just had to call in about that supposed dog man story that you all played a couple episodes again, give you a piece of my mind. My name's Shirley. I'm from Arkansas, and that was not no dog man story. I don't know if that fellow that called it in, if he is out of his mind or on the wacky tobacco and thought he saw something, but that ain't no real dog man story, because dog man don't talk. That's ridiculous. And I know because we've got dog man in my area, and even more than that, we even got a pig man. He looks like half man. Well, it's mainly just his face looks sort of like a pig, and he comes over. He lives in the caves in a holler about quarter-mile away from here, and he comes out and he sometimes digs up my taters, and I've caught him a couple times eating the taters, just chomping down on them, and he's just like a naked pink man with a face like a pig. I don't think he's an actual cryptid or anything like that. I think he's just one of them poor feral people that through several generations just as retarded and kind of pig-like now. So anyway, but that dog man story, that wasn't real, because dog men are scary and don't make jokes and things, and I'd appreciate it if you do not make fun of dog men or pig men or any of the real stuff. Thank you very much.
There you go, Freddie. And it doesn't shock me that we're getting Dogman backlash.
Yeah, I'm happier to hear about Pigman.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Freddie, because I also used Perplexity AI to ask another research question for it.
Okay.
Which is, I basically asked it to use the entire internet to the best of its ability to, in its estimate, research and determine which was a more likely creature to possibly exist, Dogman or Pigman.
Right.
So we could give some substance back to Shirley.
Yeah, I know where this is going to land for sure.
Well, as Perplexity states, when evaluating the likelihood of the existence of Dogman versus the Pigman in the United States, several factors need to be considered, including reported sightings, ecological adaptability, and biological plausibility. Regarding the dogman, particularly the Michigan dogman, has a significant number of reported sightings dating back to the late 19th century. The creature is described as a bipedal canine-like entity with the torso of a man, often seen in the northwestern quadrant of Michigan's Lower Peninsula. Sightings have been consistent over the years. The Pigman, however, such as the Vermont Pigman, has reported sightings, but I love how there is a Vermont Pigman.
Yeah.
The legend of the Pigman often revolves around a specific individual like Sam Harris, who supposedly transformed into this creature after going missing at the age of 17. While the Pigman has its place in local folklore, the volume and consistency of sightings are not as robust as those for the Dogman. And then it goes into further ecological adaptability. It kind of rules that in favor of the Dogman as more adaptable and would have more environments potentially to live in than the Pigman. Biological plausibility. From a biological standpoint, the Dogman is compared to werewolves or other mythological creatures. The concept of a bipedal canine with human traits is more plausible in folklore and myth than in biological reality. However, the idea of a large, upright walking canine is not entirely outside of the realm of possibility. The Pigman, combining human and pig traits, presents significant biological challenges. And while pigs and humans share some physiological similarities, the creation of a viable, reproducing hybrid is not supported by current biological science. And then it has an asterisk and says, DARPA told me to say that.
Yeah. I see it's scanned the available area of the internet.
Yeah. So obviously that is not taking DARPA's abilities into account, but it seems to lean on the side of dogmen being more plausible than pigmen.
No, I totally disagree with
really
AI machine.
So you're getting, yeah,
I'm sure that pigs that they've done Chimera much more credibly and successfully with pigs than they have with dogs.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is I kind of was leaning towards pigmen being more possible biologically, because there's a weird thing in like
how
in the
many
Bible and things, like when demons are cast out, like Jesus cast them out of people and into pigs. There's also like
why are they always trying to be doing pig heart transplants?
Yeah, exactly,
because they're very close.
Yep. Yeah.
You know,
so like cannibals say that humans taste like pig.
I'm going to have to take their word for that.
Yep, I would recommend that.
Yeah.
Don't go down that road. Don't get the taste.
No, I won't.
Well, I think, and basically what Shirley also was describing was potentially just an ugly hillbilly.
Who digs up her potatoes?
Yeah. Hungry, ugly hillbilly.
That could be the case.
Yeah. It's far easier to mistake ugly hillbilly for a pigman than ugly hillbilly for a dogman, I think.
These labels, though, this is where it gets cartoonish to me. Dog man,
well,
pig man, like it's not its own thing yet. It's not. I don't even know why they have to have both of the. It could be just whatever it is. Like, does it have to be a man and a pig?
Well, I think there's some debate about that in the Dogman and Sasquatch circles. That they, because there's apparently different types of Sasquatch also.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So it's difficult to label. And I think Dogman and Sasquatch actually get confused at times, they say.
Right, because what is, Bigfoot's face anyway? Is he like a gorilla? Is he like is he like Chewbacca?
There was some big debate over that.
What was Chewbacca? Yeah. Was Chewbacca a dog? Like, what was his deal?
He definitely sounded like a dog.
Sort of, yeah. I would have to go more dog.
But look like a Bigfoot.
Right, he had the body of a Bigfoot, but what was that face? It's like a werewolf. He had canines, I'm pretty sure. if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's just a character, but where'd they get the
He
character?
would probably be a good, if we were trying to imagine a hybrid between Sasquatch and Dogman. Chewbacca would probably be right down the middle.
Yeah, see, the backwards legs is where I'm like, nah, it just doesn't make sense. Because they're, like, physiologically, it doesn't make more sense to have the legs go backwards and then walk upright. It's not.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah.
They're meant to go backwards for speed on all fours, the way they extend and contract their spine, and it works out really well. But when you try standing up, it's not right.
Yeah, that's a good point. So,
although kangaroos can do it,
but pigmen more than likely have
pigs are apparently very smart too.
Yeah, have normal facing feet or legs.
No,
they don't.
No. Not their back ones.
They don't have knees.
They don't.
Like us.
Have you ever drawn a pig?
I'm trying to remember.
You're drawing forward knees on a pig?
I'm trying to imagine. I haven't thought about this in a while.
The correct drawing, I'm pretty sure, if I'm thinking of this now, now you got me thinking, do the front ones go forward or backwards? Because I know cows, they bend like normal knees on the front.
Say you're a DARPA scientist and your department, you're in charge of Pigman creation.
You've been elevated to the status
finally to Pigman
after all your scientific
supervisor. So you've got your team of people that
Glenn,
and you've had
Glenn, the Pigman supervisor.
Yeah, and you've had some successes, some failure. You've made some have lasted a few years, some have escaped. Like, what kind of legs are you giving Pigman?
And is he upright walking?
Well,
I guess because you're saying man.
For all the reasons why you want to create Pigman. Like, think of your executives or, good God, Freddie, we need Pigman now. So for whatever those reasons are, how would you design
There's
him?
So many advantages to different types of legs, though. Like, if you get into, if I was Glenn and I was going to try and really jump up in the ranks here with Pigman, I would just throw in some insect DNA in there too, and now we're talking about lots and lots of different kinds of legs that are available.
It does seem like if you're just going to make a creature from scratch, if you had that possibility, if DARPA had that ability, they would make it. Wouldn't be a blend of just a human and one creature. It'd be like you pick the best parts.
You could take
each.
the exoskeleton. Scorpions got a cool exoskeleton type thing, and then you add that, and then the fact that like lizards can literally crawl on walls, and you'd need to add that feature in there. But we can come up with a really good animal. At the end.
Wow, that's a good idea.
Some venom.
Yeah.
There's lots of good parts to all these. I'm sure they already did this.
Yeah.
Like, in the 80s.
You're probably right.
This is old news.
Well, I think this could be a good place to wind it up for today. Because we've had a lot of good calls and had some very important discussions.
If anybody out there can call in and give us a story about what they would create, that'd be cool too.
Or I would just, if anybody else had, there's so many interesting topics that people could add to the conversation on, Freddie, from Pigman to Dogman to Phrogging. If you are a frogger, we will, if you call from someone's house you're frogging in, we will elevate you to the front of the line on calls getting played. So,
and we won't turn them in?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. I mean, as long as they're living by that moral code of the Froggers that I read to begin with.
Well, just for our own CYA, just use the word hypothetically, and then we won't be taking part.
Hypothetically.
Yeah.
So definitely whatever cause you've got, whether they are funny, creepy, scary, whether you're pissed off, want to tell us we suck, whatever you got, go ahead and send it on in. The link to the SpeakPipe is going to be in the show notes. It only takes one click and you can record it, send it right in, and you'll get played on the show and discussed with the same level of reverence and deep research.
Yeah, we haven't broken down a you suck call.
Yeah,
yet,
I think they're coming.
All right.
I got a feeling that they will arrive at some point. But and then even if it's telling us we suck, if you get the most votes for the month, which you could, then you'll win $250 and we'll invite you on the show to interview you about why we suck.
Sweet.
So there's all kinds of potential. And also we've got hopefully the interview show coming up with Rob Kidston next, if he's got the time to be able to do it. And then I will let you guys know that there's some exciting additional developments coming to the show probably in the next couple of weeks. I hope to announce on the next episode. So
nice.
Yeah. So we're sort of expanding, Freddie. We're getting
like
the momentum going.
I like it. Not stagnant.
Yep. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please remember to leave a 5-star ranking if you found the show entertaining or learned anything at all. And tune in next week. Thanks for listening.
Please be aware that Your Best True Story podcast cannot attest to the validity of any story contained within. Additionally, all podcast hosts have failed numerous IQ tests and been legally deemed idiots by the judicial branch of the state of Florida. Therefore, please seek second opinions from licensed attorneys, doctors, CPAs, and/or ventriloquists prior to leaving your job to hunt Bigfoot, dragging a stake through your sleeping spouse's heart due to vampiric suspicion, snipping, slicing, dicing, or gargling any substance, attempting to drive your automobile off of the flat earth, or attempting to overthrow any government over suspicion that they are lizard aliens. The Your Best True Story podcast does not purport to offer legal, financial, or gynecological advice. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Please wear your seatbelt at all times and keep your hands inside your own compartment. If there is a sudden loss of pressure, you do have our permission to scream. The Your Best True Story podcast takes no responsibility for divorce, bankruptcy, possession by an ancient demonic entity, or brain herpes. For everything else, we still take no responsibility, but we do feel very bad about it.
You got a crazy-ass true story to tell. It could be funny or thrilling or creepy as hell. And when you speak, surely none will make a sound. And the world's going breathless when your true story comes around. Oh, hear the crazy bullshit flying. Just one more maybe true story before we're dying. Yet be warned, surely not all stories will be treated the same. So don't blame us if your tale about Grandma's cookies is lame. The only way to ensure you could possibly win a buck is to make sure that story of yours don't suck. So instead of yawns, go ahead and tell us how that Bigfoot or werewolf drowned, and then hear the world go breathless when your true story comes around. You'll hear the crazy bullshit flying. Just one more maybe true story before we're dying. Yet be warned, surely not all stories will be treated the same. So don't blame us if your tale about your grandma's cookies is lame.